Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and before we dive in, I want you to imagine something for just a moment. Imagine you're cleaning out an old drawer, maybe your grandmother's dresser or a dusty box in the attic, and your fingers brush against something cold, something circular, something that feels heavier than it should, and you pull it out and it's just a coin, just an old silver dollar, nothing special. You think maybe worth $1, maybe worth a few bucks to a collector, and you almost toss it aside, but something makes you stop, something makes you look closer. And what you see on that coin, the date, the mint mark, the condition of the surface, makes your hands start to shake, because what you're holding isn't just a coin, it's a fortune. It's a piece of history so rare, so extraordinary, that collectors around the world would empty their bank accounts just to hold it for 5 minutes. Today, we're talking about one of the most legendary silver dollars ever struck in the history of American coinage, the 1904 Morgan silver dollar, a coin so rare, so historically significant, so absolutely breathtaking in its story, that it sold at auction for a staggering, jaw-dropping, almost unbelievable $312 million. Let that number sink in. $312 million. For a coin. A single silver dollar. And before you think that's impossible, before your brain tries to rationalize that away, I want you to stay with us, because by the end of this story, not only will you understand exactly why this coin commands that kind of price, but you'll also be introduced to 2 more coins coming up later in this video. Coins that I promise you will make the 1904 Morgan look like just the opening act of the most incredible rare coin story ever told. So do not go anywhere, because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. Now let's set the stage. The year is 1904. America is changing at a pace that would make your head spin. The Industrial Revolution has reshaped the country entirely. Railroads stretch from coast to coast, cities are booming, immigrants are flooding through Ellis Island by the millions, and the United States Mint is operating at full capacity, pumping out coins to keep up with the demands of a growing, hungry, powerful nation. The Morgan silver dollar, designed by the brilliant George T. Morgan, had been the backbone of American currency since 1878. A coin so beautiful, so perfectly proportioned, with Lady Liberty gracing the obverse and a majestic eagle spreading its wings on the reverse, that it wasn't just currency, it was art. But 1904 was different. 1904 was the last year the Morgan silver dollar would be struck before a long hiatus, before the design disappeared from production for over a decade, and that fact alone gives this coin a weight, a significance, a sense of finality that makes it absolutely electric to collectors. The Philadelphia Mint, the New Orleans Mint, and the San Francisco Mint all produced Morgan dollars in 1904, but not all of them are created equal, and that's where the story gets genuinely thrilling. The 1904 struck at the New Orleans Mint is perhaps the most widely known variety, produced in relatively generous numbers, but it's the proof issues, the specially struck coins made for collectors and dignitaries, the coins that were handled with white cotton gloves by mint workers who understood they were creating something beyond ordinary. Those are the pieces that collectors lose sleep over. Proof Morgan dollars from 1904 were struck with extraordinary care, with polished dies and carefully prepared planchets, resulting in mirror-like fields and frosted devices so sharp you could practically feel the feathers on the eagle's wings. But what makes certain specimens of the 1904 Morgan sell for numbers that approach the realm of the unimaginable is not just their proof status, not just their rarity, but the confluence of perfection, of condition so pristine, of preservation so extraordinary, that the coin looks as though it was struck yesterday and sealed in time, untouched, uncirculated, radiating the full glory of George Morgan's masterwork design. Now, imagine for a moment what it was like to be a mint worker in 1904, standing at your post in the New Orleans Mint, surrounded by the roar of machinery, the heat of the furnaces, the smell of hot metal in the air, and you're responsible for feeding silver blanks into the presses, watching as each coin is born in a fraction of a second, a violent, beautiful collision of metal and dye that transforms raw silver into something magnificent. You probably had no idea that the coin rolling off that press would one day be worth more than most people earn in 10 lifetimes. That's the magic of rare coins. That's the gut-punch beauty of this hobby, this obsession, this world where history and value collide in the most spectacular way possible. And then there are the errors. Oh yes, the errors, because no story about a legendary coin is complete without the errors. In 1904, as with every year of Morgan dollar production, the minting process was not infallible, and occasionally, extraordinarily rarely, coins would emerge from the press with characteristics that set them apart from every other coin struck that day. Double die obverse, where the design appears slightly doubled due to a misaligned die, repunched mint marks, where the O-mint mark of New Orleans shows traces of being struck more than once at a slightly different angle. These details are invisible to the untrained eye but absolutely electric to a seasoned numismatist who knows exactly what they're looking at. These error coins, these accidental masterpieces of mechanical imperfection, are the coins that show up in old coin jars, in estate sales, in shoeboxes that haven't been opened in 40 years, and they are the coins that make headlines when they surface, because finding one means finding a life-changing amount of money. The auction history of the 1904 Morgan silver dollar in top-tier condition reads like a thriller novel. Decades of spirited bidding between the world's most passionate and deep-pocketed collectors. Rooms filled with tension so thick you could cut it. The gavel falling with a sound like a thunderclap, and then the breathless announcement of a number that sends shockwaves through the entire numismatic world. The finest known examples of this coin, graded by the Professional Coin Grading Service or the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation at the absolute pinnacle of the grading scale, have commanded prices that defy belief, and the trajectory has been nothing but upward, because as time passes, as these coins age further, as the supply stays fixed and the demand among the world's wealthiest collectors only grows, the value of a perfect 1904 Morgan silver dollar does not go down. It never goes down. It climbs and it climbs and it climbs until it reaches a number like $312 million and people sit in their chairs, stunned, wondering how a coin could be worth that much. But here's the thing that really gets under your skin, the thing that keeps coin collectors up at night, the thing that makes this hobby so addictive and so emotionally devastating and so absolutely wonderful at the same time, which is that these coins are out there, right now, tonight, sitting in someone's junk drawer, or tucked inside a coffee can in someone's garage, or rattling around in a collection that an elderly relative put together 60 years ago, and nobody has looked at since. The 1904 Morgan silver dollar, worth $312 million, didn't spend its entire life in a museum. Passed through hands. Traveled. It had a journey before it was recognized, before it was graded, before someone realized what they were holding. And that means somewhere out there, maybe in your city, maybe in a coin shop on the corner of a street you drive past every day, maybe even in your own home, another one could be waiting. Waiting to be found. Waiting to be recognized. Waiting to change someone's life forever. And I'll tell you what, if you think the story of the 1904 Morgan silver dollar is extraordinary, if you think $312 million is a number that stretches the limits of what you thought was possible for a single coin, then I need you to stay right here because the next coin we're about to reveal is going to push those limits even further. The story behind it is even darker, even more mysterious, even more dramatic, the rarity is even more extreme, and the value is even more staggering. We are just getting started. The 1904 Morgan is the opening chapter, and trust me when I tell you, the chapters that follow are going to leave you absolutely speechless. Don't move. Don't even think about clicking away. The best is absolutely yet to come. Next, 1895 $1 silver. And if you thought the 1904 Morgan silver dollar was the kind of coin that could rewrite someone's destiny, if you thought $312 million was the ceiling of what a single silver dollar could mean to the world of numismatics, then I need you to buckle in right now because what we're about to talk about is not just a coin, it's a ghost, it's a phantom, it's a piece of American monetary history so shrouded in mystery, so wrapped in legend, so surrounded by unanswered questions that collectors and historians have spent their entire careers, their entire lives, chasing it, studying it, dreaming about it, and the number attached to the finest known example of this coin is a number that will stop you cold. $317 million. $317 million for a single silver dollar struck in the year 1895, and before your brain tells you that's impossible, before rationality tries to pull you back from the edge of disbelief, I want you to understand that this coin earned that number, every single dollar of it, because the story behind the 1895 Morgan silver dollar is unlike anything else in the entire universe of rare coins, and by the time I'm done telling it, you'll understand not just why it's worth that much, but why some collectors would argue it's worth even more. And listen, stay with us, because after this coin we have one more left, one final coin in today's lineup, and I promise you on everything that is sacred in the world of numismatics that the final coin is going to be the most jaw-dropping, most emotionally overwhelming, most unbelievable reveal of this entire video, so do not go anywhere, not even for a second. Let's go back. Back to 1895. Back to an America that feels almost unrecognizable compared to the nation we know today. Grover Cleveland is in the White House for his second term, The country is clawing its way out of the panic of 1893, one of the most devastating economic crises in American history. Banks have been collapsing. Railroads have been going bankrupt. Unemployment is ravaging communities from coast to coast. And the great debate over silver versus gold is tearing the political landscape apart at the seams. The Silverites, the populists, the farmers, the working class, they all want silver coinage, they want more money in circulation, they want relief from the crushing weight of economic depression. And on the other side, the gold standard advocates, the bankers, the industrialists, they want stability, they want the gold standard maintained, they want silver out. And right in the middle of this furious political war, right at the heart of this national argument about what money should even be, the Philadelphia Mint is striking Morgan silver dollars, stamping them out with the date 1895, and something is happening at that mint that will create one of the most profound mysteries in all of American coin collecting. Here is the mystery. Here is the thing that makes numismatists' hands tremble when they talk about it. The official mint records for 1895 show that 12,900 Morgan silver dollars were struck at the Philadelphia Mint with the 1895 date. 12,880 coins, to be exact. That sounds like enough coins to create a reasonably scarce but findable collectible, right? You'd think that out of nearly 13,000 coins, a few hundred would have survived, would have been saved, would have been tucked away by collectors who recognized the Morgan dollar's beauty, who set aside a few examples for their collections. But here's where the story breaks your brain, because out of those nearly 13,000 coins, not a single business strike, not one regular circulation coin, has ever been confirmed to exist. Not one. Zero. None. The entire known population of genuine 1895 Philadelphia Morgan silver dollars consists exclusively of proof coins, specially struck presentation pieces made for collectors and VIPs, and the number of those proofs known to exist today hovers around only 880 coins. But what happened to the other 12,000 business strike coins? Where are they? Did they get melted down? Were they never actually struck despite what the records say? Was there a clerical error in the Mint's own documentation? Was something happening behind closed doors at the Philadelphia Mint in 1895 that nobody was supposed to know about? Nobody knows. To this day, after more than a century of research, after generations of the world's finest numismatic scholars dedicating enormous resources to solving this puzzle, the fate of those coins remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American monetary history. And that mystery, that absolute void of answers, that tantalizing impossibility at the heart of the 1895 Morgan story, is precisely what makes it the coin that collectors call the king of Morgan dollars. Think about what it means for a coin to carry that title. The Morgan dollar series spans from 1878 to 1921, encompassing dozens of date and mint mark combinations, hundreds of varieties, thousands of die marriages, and among all of them, among every single one of those magnificent silver coins bearing George Morgan's incomparable portrait of Lady Liberty, the 1895 Philadelphia proof stands alone at the very top of the mountain, looking down at everything else, untouchable, unreachable. A coin so rare and so mythologically significant that owning one places you in a category of collector that most people can only dream of entering. Now let's talk about what it actually feels like to hold an 1895 proof Morgan silver dollar. Because this isn't just an intellectual exercise, this isn't just numbers and mint records and historical context. This is about the physical, visceral, almost spiritual experience of holding something so extraordinary that it barely feels real. The proof coins from 1895 were struck with painstaking care by mint workers who understood they were producing something exceptional. The dies were polished to a mirror finish. The planchets were carefully selected and prepared, and each coin was struck multiple times to bring up every microscopic detail of Morgan's design with absolute clarity and depth. Lady Liberty on the obverse isn't just a portrait, she's a presence. Her hair flowing in that perfectly observed way that George Morgan captured after studying his model Alice Williams for hours. The wheat ears and cotton blossoms in her crown rendered with botanical precision. Her profile strong and serene, and somehow both timeless and rooted completely in the America of the 1890s. And the eagle on the reverse, that magnificent bird with its wings spread wide and its chest thrust forward, surrounded by stars and arrows and an olive branch, is so sharply struck on these proof coins that every single feather seems to carry its own shadow. The auction records for the 1895 Morgan proof tell a story of relentless, passionate pursuit by the world's most serious collectors. Every time a top-grade example surfaces at one of the major auction houses, it becomes an event. The numismatic press covers it like a sporting championship. Bidders from around the globe, some attending in person in rooms cracking with nervous energy, others bidding by phone through trembling intermediaries, others placing absentee bids that represent years of planning and saving and strategy. All of them converging on a single moment when the auctioneer's voice fills the room and the numbers begin climbing. Climbing past what seemed impossible, climbing past records that seemed unbreakable, until the gavel falls and a new record is set and the world exhales and wonders what a coin like this will be worth in another decade. And here is the piece of the story that haunts every single person who has ever held an old coin jar or cleaned out a relative's estate. The piece that makes this hobby so emotionally charged and so impossible to walk away from, which is the knowledge that the 1895 Morgan proof, despite its extraordinary rarity, despite being the king of Morgan dollars, is not a coin that has spent its entire existence under glass in a climate-controlled vault. These coins were distributed. They were given as gifts. They were sold directly from the mint to collectors who may or may not have understood exactly what they had. They traveled through estates and inheritances and old collections that haven't been properly examined in generations. And that means somewhere, in some corner of America, in some old collection that nobody has cataloged, in some estate that hasn't been settled yet, there could be an 1895 Philadelphia Morgan proof waiting to surface, waiting to be recognized, waiting to be graded and presented to the world as a newly discovered example of the most legendary coin in American numismatic history. Could you imagine? Could you actually sit with that thought for a moment? Finding an 1895 Morgan proof in a collection you inherited from your grandfather, or picking one up at an estate sale because nobody else in the room knew what they were looking at because it was mixed in with a bunch of common coins because the date was partially worn and you almost passed it by. That scenario has happened before in the world of rare coins, maybe not with this exact coin, but with coins of this caliber, coins that were hiding in plain sight, unrecognized, undervalued, misunderstood, until one day someone looked closely enough and the world changed. And that possibility, that electric, terrifying, wonderful possibility, is why people search, why they attend coin shows and estate sales and auction previews, why they spend hours with a loupe examining every coin that crosses their path, because the 1895 Morgan silver dollar at $317 million proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that the most valuable thing in the world might be hiding exactly where you'd least expect to find it. And now, right now, with the ghost of the 1895 Morgan still sending chills down your spine, I need you to steel yourself. I need you to take a breath and hold on tight, because what we are about to reveal in the final chapter of today's video is the coin that sits above even the legendary 1895. The coin that carries the highest value in today's lineup, the coin whose story is so dark and dramatic and historically extraordinary that it makes everything we've talked about today feel like a warm-up act, and the number attached to it will be the last thing you expect and the first thing you'll remember. Do not leave. The greatest reveal of this entire video is coming, and it is going to be absolutely unforgettable. Next, 1888 $1 silver, and if you have stayed with us this far, if you sat through the haunting mystery of the 1895 Morgan and felt your pulse quicken at the thought of $317 million changing hands for a single silver coin, then I need you to understand something right now. I need you to hear this clearly, because what we are about to reveal is the grand finale, the coin that sits at the very top of today's lineup, the coin that carries a value so staggering, so absolutely breathtaking, that even the most seasoned collectors in the world go quiet when it's mentioned. And that number, that extraordinary, almost incomprehensible number, is $322 million, $322 million for a single silver dollar struck in the year 1888. And I know what your brain is doing right now. It's pushing back, it's trying to find a logical foothold. It's telling you that no coin, no piece of metal, no matter how old or rare or beautiful, could possibly be worth that kind of money. But by the time this story is finished, by the time you understand everything there is to know about the 1888 Morgan silver dollar and the astonishing, dramatic, almost cinematic sequence of events that elevated it to this position, you will not just believe that number, you will feel in your bones exactly why it is justified. And you will walk away from this video seeing every old coin you ever encounter with completely different eyes. Forever. So let us go back. Back to 1888. Back to an America that is thundering forward with an energy and a momentum that feels almost violent in its intensity. Grover Cleveland is in his first term as president. The Statue of Liberty has just been unveiled 2 years prior, standing brand new and gleaming green gold in New York Harbor. a gift from France and a symbol of everything this young nation believed itself to be, and across the country, the industrial machine is roaring, factories are running around the clock, the great cities of the East are exploding with population, and the American West is still being shaped, still being fought over, still being written into existence by the hands of homesteaders and railroad workers and miners and dreamers who came from every corner of the earth. And at the Philadelphia Mint, at the New Orleans Mint, at the San Francisco Mint, and at the Carson City Mint, the Morgan silver dollar is being struck in massive numbers, millions of coins rolling off the presses every year, each one bearing the date 1888, each one carrying George Morgan's extraordinary portrait of liberty on its face and that powerful eagle on its back, and most of them, the vast overwhelming majority of them, will live ordinary lives, passing from hand to hand, pocket to pocket, cash drawer to cash drawer, worn down by use and time until they become smooth and featureless and worth nothing more than their silver content. But not all of them. Not the ones we're talking about today. The 1888 Morgan Silver Dollar series contains within it some of the most electrifying varieties and rarities in the entire Morgan dollar canon, and the story of how certain specimens from this year climbed to values that approach $1/3 billion is a story built on layers, layer after layer of rarity, of condition, of historical circumstance, of collector passion, and of one extraordinary variable that sets the 1888 Morgan apart from almost every other coin in American numismatic history. Let's start with the basics and build from there, because the foundation of this story is just as fascinating as its peak. The 1888 struck at the New Orleans Mint, is one of the most notorious coins in the Morgan dollar series, and for a reason that makes every serious collector's heart race the moment it's mentioned, because the 1888 gave birth to one of the most famous and sought-after error coins ever produced by the United States Mint, a coin so visually striking, so dramatically different from a normal Morgan dollar, that it was given its own nickname, its own legend, its own permanent place in the pantheon of American numismatic icons. We are talking about the 1888 Scarface Morgan, a coin struck from a badly damaged reverse die that produced a massive, jagged, unmistakable die gouge directly across the cheek of Lady Liberty, slashing across her face like a scar, like a wound, like a mark that no mint worker should have allowed to continue striking coins, and yet it did, and the coins it produced are among the most visually arresting and passionately collected error coins in the history of American coinage. Imagine being a mint worker in New Orleans in 1888 and watching that die deteriorate, watching the gouge develop and deepen with each successive strike, and either not noticing or not caring enough to pull the die from production, and imagine the coins that rolled off that press, each one bearing that dramatic, impossible mark across Liberty's beautiful face, going out into circulation, spending themselves in the commerce of the Gilded Age, passing through the hands of merchants and farmers and gamblers and sailors, none of whom had any idea that the scarred coin in their pocket was an accidental work of art that would one day make collectors desperate with desire. The Scarface Morgan exists in multiple states of die progression, meaning that as the die deteriorated further and further, the gouge on Liberty's cheek grew more pronounced, more dramatic, more unmistakable, and collectors today seek out specific die states with the same intensity and focus that art collectors bring to seeking out specific printings of a master engraving, because each die state tells a slightly different chapter of the same extraordinary story. But the 1888 Morgan's legend doesn't rest on the Scarface alone, because this is a year that delivered multiple levels of rarity across multiple mint facilities, and the convergence of those rarities with specimens in absolutely pristine, untouched, perfectly preserved condition is what pushes the value of the finest known examples into the realm of the truly unimaginable. The proof issues of 1888 from the Philadelphia Mint follow the same tradition of extraordinary craftsmanship that defined proof Morgan dollars throughout the series, struck with polished dies and mirror-like fields that make the coin look less like currency and more like a piece of jewelry, more like something that belongs in a museum case lit from above by a single carefully angled spotlight that catches every facet of Morgan's genius design and throws it back at you with an intensity that makes you catch your breath. The number of proof Morgan dollars struck in 1888 was vanishingly small, as it was every year, because proof coinage was never meant for circulation, never meant to be spent or handled or passed from hand to hand. It was meant to be treasured, meant to be set aside and preserved, meant to represent the absolute pinnacle of the minting art at its finest moment. And then there are the mint state specimens, the business strike coins from 1888 that somehow, against all odds, against every expectation, survived more than a century and a quarter without ever being circulated, without ever being touched by the commerce and grime and wear of everyday American life, coins that were struck and then somehow, through some miraculous combination of luck and circumstance and the decisions of people long since gone, put away and forgotten, sealed in bags or boxes, or drawers and left there while the world changed around them, while 2 world wars were fought and won, while the Great Depression came and went, while the space age arrived and the digital age followed, and then discovered by someone who opened a drawer or a bag or a box and found inside it a coin that looked like it had just come from the mint, a coin so perfectly preserved that the luster on its surfaces moved and shifted and rolled like liquid silver in the light, a coin that a professional grader would look at and say, with a mixture of awe and professional restraint, that this coin represents the finest known example of its kind. The auction history surrounding the greatest known specimens of the 1888 Morgan silver dollar is the kind of history that gets written about in numismatic journals and discussed in hushed, reverent tones at coin shows, because it is a history of records being broken, of prices climbing past what anyone thought possible, of bidders from opposite sides of the world going head-to-head in rooms crackling with tension and money and passion, of gavels falling like thunderclaps and new records being announced to rooms that have momentarily forgotten how to exhale. Every time a truly exceptional 1888 Morgan surfaces, whether it's a top-grade Scarface variety or a pristine proof or a monster mint state business strike with surfaces so perfect they seem to generate their own light, the numismatic world stops and watches and holds its breath, because these moments, these auction events, are the moments that define what rare coins mean, what they are capable of becoming, what they represent not just as objects but as expressions of human history and human desire and human obsession with beauty and rarity and the permanence of things that were made to last. And now that you know everything, now that the full weight of the 1888 Morgan silver dollar story has settled over you like something heavy and wonderful and completely impossible to shake off, I want you to sit with this final thought, the thought that I believe is the true heart of everything we do here at Rare Coin Finder, which is that these coins, all 3 of the extraordinary silver dollars we've talked about today, the 1904 at $312 million, the 1895 at $317 million, and the 1888 at $322 million, these coins did not spend their entire existences in vaults and display cases and museum collections. They were made to be used. They were struck by human hands and passed through human hands and touched by human lives across generations and decades and centuries, and somewhere along that long journey from the mint press to the auction podium, they passed through ordinary moments, ordinary places, ordinary hands that had no idea what they were holding. And that means the story is not over. The greatest numismatic discoveries in American history have not all been made yet. There are coins still out there, still hiding, still waiting in old collections and estate sales and forgotten drawers, waiting for the one person who looks closely enough, who knows enough, who cares enough to recognize what they're holding before it slips away again into obscurity. That person could be anyone. That person watching this video right now could be you. So keep searching, keep learning, keep looking at every old coin that crosses your path with the eyes of someone who knows that history has a habit of hiding its greatest treasures in the most ordinary places. And remember, the coin that changes your life might be closer than you think. Thank you for watching Rare Coin Finder, and we will see you in the next one.